family. Rafa still maintained the charade at all times. He and Ash had come up with the code not long after they'd started dating. Or should he say, quote-unquote, dating. In their secret language, motorcycles filled in for hot guys. For example, if Rafa said, "I saw a gorgeous ride today," a Ducati with red trim, that meant he'd spotted a sexy redhead he wanted to bang. Anyone who shared Ash's interest in Renaissance art was a lesbian she wanted to hook up with. At first, it had been a fun game to talk in code, but now it was just normal. Most importantly, it was effective, since it had been 3 years and they hadn't been outed. They'd played their roles as young lovers perfectly, and it had served them both well. Ashley hadn't been ready to come out to her incredibly conservative parents, and Rafa couldn't either. Not yet, anyway. Most of the world might have come a long way on the subject of gay rights, but the neoconservatives in the States had pushed back hard. A Republican president with a gay son living in the White House? It would have been a nightmare for his father, let alone for him. Rafa had about 7 months to go in D.C. until the new president's inauguration in January. And then he was free. He wished Ash had been at the young leader's summer seminar his mother had forced him to suffer through after his exams. Sitting in lectures just wasn't the same without his best friend. While the rest of the class in Intro to American Studies at UVA in freshman year had stared and whispered furtively, splitting their attention between Rafa and the Secret Service agents in khakis and polos at the back of the lecture hall, who were not blending in even a little. Ashley had plopped next to him and started complaining about the water pressure in her dorm. She'd also inquired as to whether his goons would kill her snoring roommate and make it look like an accident. Yawning, Rafa stretched out on the mattress. Before he'd moved in at 14, there'd been a 4-poster bed in his room, complete with canopy. Fortunately, they'd redecorated in tasteful earth tones of rich reddish brown and green, and his bed was canopy-free. They'd even redone the ensuite bathroom for him in gleaming white and silver. Aside from the surfing poster, it might have been a hotel room. He'd already unpacked and everything was neatly tucked away in his closet and shiny mahogany dresser. His sister Adriana's room had typically looked akin to a hurricane disaster zone, but Rafa always kept his neat and tidy. Their parents had insisted they be responsible for keeping their own rooms and bathrooms clean, and the fewer things he gave them to criticize, the better. After getting up and yanking on his jeans and sneakers, Rafa took a quick glance in the mirror, frowning at his stupid freckles, already more prominent even though summer had just begun. His thick, dark brown hair tended to curl, and after his evening shower he hadn't parted it and slicked it back with his usual extra-strength pomade. He brushed the gentle curls off his forehead, making a mental note to ask Henry, the chief usher, to get the barber in since there were waves forming just above his ears. And the last thing Rafa needed was to be called a chia pet again. His cheeks still got hot when he thought about the internet meme with his face photoshopped on a fuzzy ceramic animal with bushy chia growing from it. He just started his new high school in Washington mid-year after his father's inauguration, and at 14 he'd been gangly and pimply with a mouthful of metal. Suddenly his new classmates would say "cha-cha-cha-chia" when he came into the room, and he hadn't even gotten the joke until he'd Googled it. The kids at school had usually been nice to him, but they'd gotten a kick out of the meme. Even though Rafa had cut his hair an inch from his scalp the next day, the nickname had stuck. He edged open the door and peeked out of his room, officially known as Bedroom 303. There was really no need for stealth, since the second and third floors of the residence in the White House were the only place in the world he had freedom from his Secret Service detail. But it was a habit. His eldest brother Christian's room was across the center hall, but Chris was 27 and hadn't ever really lived at the White House full-time. Now he was in New York, and Rafa was alone up on the third floor as usual. To his left was the music room and workout room.